going to take the North and never give it back.
So that's a good pick. You get the corner. I got to go bold, right? I got to go bold for this.
Yeah, she's got some nice.
Welcome back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Barron. Make sure to like and subscribe if you are out there on YouTube. And also rate the show 5 stars everywhere that you get your podcast. What is going on, Bears fans? We get Chicago Bears football this week. And also for everybody out there on YouTube, check out the new digs for the next month or so. I'll be recording out of this room because our basement's getting done. So new location, the old location is being fixed up right now. It was in the basement. So now that's all going to be renovated. I'll have a new location. So took a couple days to just kind of get everything kind of set up for this area. But for those on YouTube, you'll see this kind of get changed a little bit more on the audio side. This should sound exactly the same that you're used to. But yeah, different room, different area. So I wanted to do this not live first just to make sure all the kinks are kind of worked out with this. But we have to break down my final season predictions. But it's not just my season predictions. I want to also break down the schedule in more depth because, you know, we got to do something different here. So it's not just the standard, hey, this team's good, this team's bad. We're going to be breaking down the analytics behind the schedule, analytics behind this offense, analytics behind this defense, and take that extra deep dive that you know that we do and try to do on this show. But before we get into that, I do want to just break down Hard Knocks just a little bit because Hard Knocks is now over. Let me know down below if you're watching what you felt about the Hard Knocks down below in the comments. But overall for me, I thought it was okay. I thought it was solid. Like, I'm not going to be one of these people that just kind of hates on Hard Knocks like crazy. It's more Chicago Bears coverage that we get. So to me, the more Bears coverage I can get, the better. Now, I know that it was a very overly sanitized version of HBO Hard Knocks. I don't really watch Hard Knocks all that much. If you're a diehard Hard Knocks fan and you didn't like it, I get that. I definitely get that because even the last episode, I was getting a little bored. If it wasn't for my team, I probably wouldn't be watching it all that much. So I do wish that they went into Caleb Williams a little bit more. Maybe Caleb didn't want to be the star of the show and said, hey, focus on my other teammates, not me. I'm the rookie. I just really felt like there was so much opportunity that they just didn't really get. Like, show Caleb more. Show more of the teammates doing things. Not, I'm a family man. I'm literally recording in my son's room right now with all the Bears stuff up. But to me, I just wish that there was more player interactions, more what are they doing all together, not just going out to the supermarket or other things like that. But specifically with this last episode, I want to call a couple things out, and one mainly being all the Velus Jones love that was going on out there. I don't know if anyone else caught that, but Velus got a lot of love, and I know that a lot of it was also kind of for the cameras, just is he a running back, is he a wide receiver, but also just it was very interesting that it looked like they showed, the Bears had a trade offer for Velus Jones, and ultimately the Chicago Bears decided not to go with that trade offer and instead keep Velus Jones on this team, which to me, that is some of the biggest news because we didn't know about this whole Velus Jones trade. And what Ryan Poles was saying is he would not trade him for anything less than a 4th round pick, which really just shows how much the Bears like Velus Jones. And you hear them talking in the rooms about the explosiveness of Velus Jones and just what he was able to bring and just his attitude. So, hey, I'm rooting for him. My wife, when she was watching the show, she's rooting for him. Just don't mess up because I've heard from people too, like Courtney Cronin has talked about this from ESPN, just saying that everyone that's in the know, Velus Jones on a short leash. So if he costs a game, then you know he's going to be out. Then you know that it's like, okay, man, I know that you're explosive. I know you can do this, but you're gone. You're gone. We can't trust you anymore. So it sounds like he's at the end of the leash. But the other two pieces I want to just bring up is Brett Rippon, them wanting to bring him back on the practice squad, because that's something that we've talked about on the show is, was it just going to be Austin Reed, or is it going to be Reed and Rippon both on that practice squad? And from the looks of Hard Knocks, it does seem like Rippon was going to be their first option on practice squad, and then Reed not so much. So Rippon, first choice, Reed, second choice. Rippon ends up going to the Minnesota Vikings, then ultimately Reed stays with the Chicago Bears. But also, last but not least, I want to talk about this big guy up here in the top left next to me, Ryan Poles, because Ryan Poles to me just continues to show just awesome GM and just the human side of things that it's really just nice to see out of this GM and how Ryan Poles just conducts business overall. So he talked about it. He was cut in that very room. So he wants to treat people with the same respect that he got and just understands how hard it was. So overall, thought it was interesting, but yeah, Hard Knocks itself, not great. Now I got to finish The Wire. So I know that some of y'all are curious about what show I ended up watching. I'm watching The Wire right now, and it's not as great as Breaking Bad. My wife, though, and I, we just finished season 1, so we're getting into some more. So we're hoping that it kind of like we can't wait to just kind of continue watching The Wire for sure. So yeah, thanks for all the suggestions though out there. But let's get into the schedule and let's start talking about the Chicago Bears a little bit more, because I want to break down just the overall season and what we can expect from the Bears and why also we should be high on this season. Now, first off, I forgot to break this down too. We do have an injury report, our first ever injury report. Keenan Allen, Karan Amagaji, Ryan Bates, Roshan Johnson, Zach Pickens, and Montez Sweat, all limited. So we'll go through it more tomorrow when we break down the actual game previews. We'll break it down like we normally do for those game previews. But let's get into the schedule stats. So with the schedule, originally the Bears had the third easiest schedule according to when you look at Sharp Analytics, when you look at the win-loss projected totals in Vegas. But if you look at it now, the Bears are now considered the fifth easiest schedule because the win totals changed throughout Vegas, and ultimately Bears having the fifth easiest ranked schedule. And for those that can see this graphic, it really does kind of go Falcons by far number 1, then Chargers by far number 2, then it gets Bengals and Jets, and then it drops down to like the Bears, the Saints, the Colts. So ultimately, Bears top 5 easiest schedule. And if you're curious about how it was last season was the 6th easiest schedule according to the Vegas forecasted win totals. And the reason why that this is a good indicator is because Vegas throws out these win totals as essentially here are the best teams. So we can grab those win totals, bring those in, and then just kind of estimate where some of these teams are. Because I do hear a lot of people, we never know how good a schedule is. We kind of do though. We kind of do. Like if you're going against the Chiefs, you know it's probably going to be a difficult time unless some injury, right? Like injuries are always going to happen, but this just really does show Bears have one of the easiest schedules on paper, an easy top 5 schedule. But also the Bears have the second easiest quarterback schedule. Because when you look at the different quarterbacks that they go against, which we'll be talking about, they don't face any of what are considered quote unquote tier 1 quarterbacks. So those tier 1 quarterbacks like your Josh Allens, your Joe Burrows, your Patrick Mahomes. So because you're not going against that upper echelon of quarterbacks, you're still going against CJ Stroud and whatever you think about Jordan Love and Jared Goff. So you're still going against some good quarterbacks. But a lot of people have some of those good quarterbacks. And it's those upper echelon quarterbacks, those tier 1 quarterbacks that really just raise that schedule difficulty up just a little bit more. And what's that? You want more schedule details? You want more schedule stats? Well, there's Sharp Analytics does a phenomenal job just going into the whole analytics behind just your schedule. And another thing that they look into is just the amount of rest that your team gets. So they factor in kind of net rest. They also factor in kind of like short week road games off of Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football, bye weeks, different things like that get factored in. And also one of their key things is they factor in your rest versus your opponent's rest. Because when you just simply look at your schedule, a lot of times you might go, oh, well, the Bears have a short week. Well, if you look at this, the Bears are the only team in the NFL to be equal or greater in rest differential across every single game. So what does that mean? It means that everyone that they go against, they either have the same amount of time off or like similar like rest differential, or the Bears have significantly more rest differential than others. And actually, quite frankly, the Bears have the highest net rest edge according to Sharp Analytics, and with plus 12, or tied with Washington and the Jets. But something that's key, they have 3 games that they gave them a plus differential on. So plus 3, and a plus 6, equaling out to plus 12. So really, when you look at this data and you look at kind of this overall piece, all that this really shows is that the Bears don't have any of these underdog games when it comes down to rest. Even there is the Thanksgiving game. When you look at that, they're saying there's no real differential because they're both coming off of a short week. So yet again, you have to focus on other people's schedules, not just the Bears' schedule. And overall, another indicator that, hey, this Bears team, this Bears schedule, schedule does factor into this, is looking favorable for our beloved Chicago Bears. And this is another thing that we've gone through too, just some of the teams that are a lot easier than others. And we talked about a lot of these winnable games. What makes the Bears schedule so winnable and so simple is that when you look at a lot of these teams, there's not a lot of great teams out there. The Titans, the Panthers, the Commanders, the Cardinals, the Patriots, the Vikings, and the Seahawks are all projected to get less than 8 wins. So for those that are watching, you can see those are all teams in the green that they have out on this, like the projected win totals. So basically half of your teams are kind of winnable games, essentially. So this all just factors in to just having an easier schedule, a simpler schedule for the Bears. So it's really playing in the Bears' favor when you start looking at the numbers like that. But now, are we done with talking about schedules? Let's talk a little bit about the offensive analytics, because I want to dive deeper into this Chicago Bears offense. Because first off, the Chicago Bears have 2 top EPA, so expected points average. So that's if you're out on the field, kind of like a plus minus, if you will. When the Bears have a like when DJ Moore was out there on the field, he is considered a top 10 wide receiver according to EPA. Also, same thing with Keenan Allen. So you have 2 top 10 EPA wide receivers. But also, we have Shane Waldron now calling the offense. And a little nugget about Shane Waldron, we did a complete deep dive on Shane Waldron before we even hired him. So feel free to go back, watch that video, listen to that episode. I have a lot more analytics and data points that kind of point to Shane Waldron being a very good offensive coordinator, but also just a very general statement because he runs a very balanced offense. And also, over the past 3 seasons, the 3 seasons that he's been an offensive coordinator, all 3 have been above average in offensive scheduled adjusted efficiency. So what that means, you have an above average offense all 3 seasons, and quite frankly was the 10th best in that stretch over the last 3 seasons. And for anyone that goes 10th best, that's terrible. That stinks. That's bad. The reason why it's 10th is when we look at these data points and other things like that, a lot of the play callers and the people in charge of offenses are head coaches. Your Sean McVays, your Kyle Shanahans, your LaFleurs of the Green Bay Packers. A lot of those offensive coordinators are actually head coaches. The only other one that was consistently around with Shane Waldron is Ben Johnson from the Detroit Lions, who really just wanted to be a head coach and ultimately stayed with the Detroit Lions. So yet again, pointing to Shane Waldron kind of being the guy that you want to be calling your offense. But speaking of calling your offense, we haven't talked about Caleb Williams. The big thing with Caleb Williams that we've talked about on this show is playing within structure. Caleb Williams in structure, so having less than 2.5 seconds to throw the ball. He had an adjusted accuracy percentage of 82% when he was throwing with less than 2.5 seconds. Also, only had two turnover-worthy plays last season when he was throwing in under 2.5 seconds. Now, yes, some of those are just quick, shopped plays, but this is just where when he gets the ball out, very, very, very efficient. That's something that we're hoping to see, just that quicker processing or even just easier plays, easier dump offs, and just kind of those schemed up routes. Hopefully he can just start throwing those, because that's really what his ultimate goal is, to try and get those simple things and make them pay. But now, the last little bit that I want to talk about this offense before going over to the defense, got more stats on this offensive line, because a lot of us feel uneasy about this offensive line, and rightfully so. We were one of the most heavily sacked teams over the past couple of years. Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, both two of the most sacked quarterbacks, ironically enough, on the same exact team. But with Justin Fields, more and more data points point to the quarterback being very creating a lot of sacks for the Chicago Bears. And when you look at the advanced analytics from ESPN Analytics, the Bears offensive line was top 5 in both pass block win rate and run block win rate. To me, that's a little rich, but you heard me correct. That's what they said. Now, do I buy that? Not fully, but that's something that was out there. And I think, though, that I do think that this offensive line, I've said on this show, is better than what a lot of people think because of that. And you can also look at other sites that use analytics. They have the Bears offensive line as a top 16 unit, where all they really did is just change the center around. And that's all they literally did. It's because you can expect Nate Davis to most likely play at his normal self. Tevin Jenkins is good. Braxton Jones is good. Darnell Wright, you expect some sort of progression. And then you clearly upgraded at center, no matter if it's Ryan Bates or Coleman Shelton, because Lucas Patrick was just not good at that position. But overall, you should expect the offensive line to play better. But even then, the Bears are projected to face the easiest slate of pass defenses in a bottom 5 pass rush teams. So overall, when you look at the teams, yet again, compared to other teams, this is an easy schedule and a lot of bad defenses that the Chicago Bears will be playing, especially against the pass. So all good things for our beloved Chicago Bears. And no, we have not even gotten close to my final predictions yet. We still got to break down the defense and give you some just advanced stats. Yet again, I want to do this because not a lot of people do this. They just kind of say win, loss, win, loss. So I really do hope that you appreciate it. If you're watching out there, make sure to drop a like, make sure to subscribe. And if you're listening, just a friendly reminder, rate it 5 stars, helps out the show tremendously. So let's get into the defensive statistics, because like I said, when you look at the Bears offenses that they're going to be playing against, it's the second easiest quarterback schedule, because yet again, not going against the tier 1 quarterbacks, so to speak, and just kind of going against some solid quarterbacks, and the Minnesota Vikings and the Titans and Bryce Young. That's really where you start to see kind of that gigantic drop off when it comes to quarterbacks. Same thing with Jaden Daniels. Same thing with Jacoby Brissett. The poor quarterback play is really what factors in. And Anthony Richardson, too, from the Colts, another quarterback that you go, okay, how good is he? Because now when you talk about the top tier, the good quarterbacks you're really playing, Jordan Love, Jared Goff, Brock Purdy, CJ Stroud, Trevor Lawrence, Matt Stafford, all those quarterbacks, like 50% of those quarterbacks, it's a debate how good they are, right? That's kind of that whole slate of the quarterbacks that the Bears will be playing. But let me talk a little bit about this defense, though, because in the first 8 weeks, remember, we had Alan Williams as the defensive coordinator. We also didn't have Montez Sweat. But in those first 8 weeks, the Chicago Bears defense's EPA was 30th in the NFL. Then after week 8, the 8 weeks, we got Montez Sweat, and then we were the 4th best in defensive EPA. So absolute dominance. And really this dominance came in early downs, where the Bears were 4th in EPA on defense in those early down situations. But on the flip side, the Chicago Bears were one of the worst on the later downs and in third down in red zone. They were both bottom 5 in both third down efficiency and red zone efficiency. So this is really where you can kind of expect some kind of regressing and back to the mean when you start looking at the Chicago Bears defense. So you should expect them to do a lot better on third down and red zone because this defense has been doing a lot better inside of training camp and preseason. And like I said, one of the worst teams last season in the big money plays, the third down and red zone. But also a big reason for this was the turnovers. They were second in, they were tied for the most interceptions, but also had the 8th highest EPA off of turnovers, but also were fairly lucky when it came down to injuries. They had the 6th best ranked injury luck overall. Because really, when you look at who was injured, you're really talking about some of the safeties, some of the corners, and that really kind of being it. So really good turnovers and also good injury luck on this defense. So like I said, defense should be good. They ended strong, but you do kind of will they be like the 4th best defense? I doubt that, but I do think that they even out because there's some progression that you can expect. But like we said, pass defense should have an easy test with some of these quarterbacks that we'll face, but we are going to be facing a top 10 rush unit throughout this season. So good running attack that we have to just make sure we hunker down, which with Matt Eberflus, this defense has been very, very good against the run. So makes you feel a little bit more confident because that's kind of the strength of this defense is going against the run. Now, we will have to hopefully see a big season out of Tremaine Edmonds. Over the last 6 seasons, he's had 5 seasons below replacement level, and his only season above replacement level was the season before he became a Chicago Bear. Also, too, Martin, the defensive end, has over a 30% missed tackle rate, and Darrell Taylor is not that much better either. So some of the backup defensive ends, liabilities in the run defense. So really the Bears are going to have to hunker down and truly stop the run like they did last season. And if that happens, this team is going to feel a lot better. Now, with all those stats out of the way, we have about 20 minutes of stats that I wanted to fly through. But now let's start talking about my final predictions, because when I look at this team, I want to try and branch it up. And yet again, I'm still not someone that likes to go win, loss, win, loss. But I kind of stand with what I've been talking about with the Chicago Bears. This team, I expect this offense to be good. We do have a rookie quarterback, though, so there should be some just learning pains with him being a quarterback. Also, too, with the difficult part of the schedule more towards the end of the season, I think that it's going to be as he starts to get things and as he starts to progress, because we've seen this with Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams has progressed a lot throughout this offseason and a lot during training camp. Adam Hogue from CHGO was saying, hey, the most improved Bear has been Caleb Williams because he started off kind of not poorly, but he's just gotten so much better because that's what you expect out of a rookie. That's what you want out of your quarterback. So the start of the season is a little bit easy, but then it gets harder and harder towards the second half. But if we break it down into just little chunks, little 4-game chunks, the first 4-game chunk, Titans, which is in the green, then you have Texans, which is dark red, and then you have Colts and Rams, which are kind of that in-between team. Just good team, but not necessarily a great team. So you have a winnable game at Tennessee, but you also see the stats too. Number 1 pick quarterbacks are 4-22-1 in that initial game. And also I think it's the last 20 years have never actually won on opening day. So rookie quarterbacks picked number 1 overall, not a good record. The history doesn't really help them out too much with this. So I think in this 4-game chunk, I would expect the Bears to go 2-2 because you should beat the Titans. And if you don't, then you should beat some of these other teams. You know, you should come away with two games because I still feel that this team is good. I think that this offense should be good. I think that Swift is very, very underrated now because of what he's been able to do in training camp. I think he's going to be used, or underrated in the sense I think he's going to be used very well. I still don't love the signing because I think we paid him a little bit too much, but we really haven't seen much of him and stuff out of this running game. So I think we're going to get that running game going. And can see us winning 2 games in the first 4 weeks. Then we get into this. We'll chunk it up in let's see, another 4-game chunk. We'll do a 5-game chunk. So we got the Panthers, we got the Jags. So Panthers, easy game. Jags, good team. Then you have the Commanders, Cardinals, and the Patriots. So all 3 of those teams projected to be bad teams. So with this is where 4-1. And 4-1 seems very rich. Seems very, very rich in this area. But if you want to be a playoff team, the Bears are better than these teams. The Bears should be able to win 4 of these games, and that's where you get the 6 wins. The 6 wins in that chunk. And so then to me, you get into the Packers, the Vikings, the Lions, the 49ers, and that's where I'm projecting just 1-3 there. You're going against 3 very good teams. The Vikings, they're going to definitely push. I could see them just kind of coming away with 1 victory in that little area and then finishing out the season with Vikings, Lions, Seahawks, and Green Bay. And yet again, maybe another, and then that's where I kind of project more that those 2 wins. So when you all kind of factor this in, right? So you start out with 2 wins, then you go with 4 wins. So you got 6, and then 7, 8, 9. So to me, I'm around that 9-8 season. And it might sound a little pessimistic. I think that 9-8 would be a phenomenal season. That's actually what I'm going with, just because rookie jitters, going through this season, difficult season towards the tail end, and also really having to get off to that hard start, I think is going to be challenging. But to me, I'm more of that 9-8 or 10 wins. And I've also heard this kind of being thrown out too, where a lot of people will start to say, well, if the Bears don't have a winning record and Caleb Williams looks good, then it's still a win, which I kind of push back a little bit. So obviously you want Caleb Williams to look good, which I agree with. You do want him to look good, but it'll feel bad. It'll feel bad. Like if Caleb Williams is good and we don't have a winning record, when all the stats that I just threw out at you, where this should be an easy season for the Bears to get a lot of these victories, that's where to me, it still would feel like it would feel like a disappointing season, because you go, this quarterback's good. What else didn't work, right? Was it the defense? Was it the running game? What was it that didn't necessarily work? So to me, I'm a Bears get into the playoffs. I'm projecting playoffs. I think that this is a playoff team. I think they should be a playoff team. Otherwise, like I said, I will be disappointed. But what's next? Well, tomorrow we will be breaking down the Chicago Bears versus the Titans and going into big depth, just like we did on this show. Probably not in this crazy amount of depth, but we'll still be breaking down the show like you come to expect. And then also we'll be having our award ceremony. What I am going to kind of the projections for the awards, one of my favorite shows. And if you're new to this show, you'll love it too. So stay tuned. Make sure to like and subscribe out there on YouTube. Hit the notification bell so you get all the notifications. And also those that are watching or those listening, make sure to just rate 5 stars everywhere that you get your podcast. And with that, Unbearable Sports Podcast, we are out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair, and you know that she's a